depression inherited? Hello everybody, it's Tom here. I hope you're all well. I want to talk today about the idea that depression is actually something that can run in families. Now when I say run in families, think in terms of genetics, like anything that's inherited genetically as an illness. Now, if we're talking about this, depression is an illness, and like any other illness that can be inherited, there is evidence to suggest that there is a link between the genetics of a parent passing on to a child. Okay? And we can look at this from my own personal viewpoint here. So, there is scientific research that suggests that there is actually a possibility that the genetics can actually pass on and make you more susceptible to levels of depression than perhaps some more than others. That doesn't mean that you will only get depression if your parents or someone in your family has it. Absolutely not. Depression can flare up as a result of life experience and trauma and all those sort of things as well, environmental factors. But there is definitely something in, if someone in your family has had it, you're probably more likely at some point in your life to experience it. And I will elaborate on this. So if we look at my family, particularly on my mother's side, so my maternal grandparents, my grandfather, whose name was Thomas as well, yes, the name runs in the family, believe it or not, he had depression, but he had it in a time when we didn't know a lot about it, when the attitude to depression was probably man up, pull yourself together, all of those negative things that we used to say that we shouldn't ever be an advocate of anymore. And then, sure enough, that sort of passed on to my mother and to my aunt, and quite bad. But definitely my mother seemed to inherit that from her father, because my mum had 3 really bad bouts of depression. So, first one was kind of brought on by her life and work circumstances, which was a breakdown due to high levels of stress within her workplace, taking on a lot of work, high pressure job. That was the first real time it sort of showed itself in her life. Then when I was born, she went through postnatal depression, which is quite common in a lot of women. It's a fear of, the firstborn's born. I was the firstborn, I'm the eldest of 3 children, so it's a fear of not being able to cope, not being able to look after the baby. And that really was quite strong, to be honest. I remember as a 7-year-old boy, my mum having a full manic episode. And yeah, after I was born, and as mum got through the postnatal depression, I wouldn't say she got over it. It then kind of moved to bipolar disorder. What was known then as manic depression, it's now known as bipolar disorder. And as I said, as I just alluded to, I've seen my mother flip out, have an absolute crazy episode when I was a boy. It was one of the scariest things I've ever seen in my life. Seeing somebody that you love lose control the way she did, screaming and punching my dad, and screaming for her father who'd been dead 12 years or something. It's it was quite frightening for me as a young child to see that. And she got it under control, but then in later life, as late as 2017 actually, like a few years back, 8 years ago, my mother had another manic depressive episode, a bipolar episode, whatever you want to call it, and that was very, very frightening again. But then now as an adult, I had a different challenge, trying to keep her calm, trying to be reasonable, firm but not too firm, you know, not an easy thing to do. But there is definitely evidence, I think, for depression running in families. So maybe it was really no real surprise that it flared up in me. I'd been brought up around it for years, having seen my mum that way. It really, I should not really have come as a surprise when it did eventually become part of what you see here before you. It became part of my day-to-day life, you know. While I'm in a much better place than I was, it was there, and it has been there, and it's no real surprise. So I would say that he's definitely a factor there, that if someone in the family has depression, there's a possibility you will as well. It's probably not as cut and dry as like passing on an illness to a child if you've got it. But I think I read somewhere that there's something to do with the chemical imbalances in your brain, that if that's being passed on from a parent, then there's a good chance you will be more susceptible to it happening to you as well. Anyway, that's the first of 3 videos this week. I want to say thank you all ever so much for listening. I really appreciate your time and energy spent on my channel. Thank you kindly. First of 3, as I said, please put down in the comment section below, do you believe that there is definitely a link between depression and inheriting it from a member of the family, particularly like a parent, a grandparent, uncle, something? Somewhere in your bloodline, is there something, if somebody suffered with it, that you're more likely to follow with? It should really, as I said, have never come as a surprise to me that I ended up with it. I was frightened of it for years because I'd seen what it had done to like my mother and that, but it became part of me, you know. It became part of my experience, shall I say, which is why I have to speak out against it, to try and help other people, you know. That's why I'm here on YouTube, simply. Please, if you would, please consider, I really appreciate if you would hit that subscribe button down below. Please consider giving me a thumbs up and a like, that'd be really great. And let's hear that bell sign go ding dong so you know my next content's out. I will be back in a couple of days with another video, but until then, please take care of yourselves and bye for now.